All right. It's time. We gotta start. Okay, we're gonna get right into it, okay? Breaking news. I'm sure you already know why you're here. We're gonna talk about the Harry and Meghan paparazzi incident that happened earlier on this week. We got a lot to jump into. Mostly what we're gonna be looking at today is the numerous bad takes that have been coming out of the media and the internet on this incident where people are just not reporting the facts. We need to have a deep dive into how people are covering this story, how people are spinning it and maybe misrepresenting certain aspects of the story to suit their own narratives. And we're going to be trying to examine what is the best possible take in all of this at this current moment with the information that we have now, based on what has been factually reported. What is a good take to have out of all of this, actually trying to come to concrete solutions to the issues. I'm going to try to be the voice of reason. I know I don't look like the voice of reason. I'm a total mess today. I was not expecting to record, so oh well. I got my tea. We're ready. We're ready. What's insane about this story is the speed at which the media machine has been able to pump out bad takes. Literally, it's like Assassin's Creed. There's Templars on both sides. There are no sides to this issue. There are people that are actually looking at the facts and people that are not. Even sources that I would typically say have pretty good journalistic integrity seem to be falling into traps. Traps that are being set up by the media itself to confuse the narrative. You know how they say Russian propaganda relies mostly not on trying to claim that the facts are false, but instead to muddy the waters in order for people to distrust their senses and the media that they consume? That's happening right now in real time. The misinformation and disinformation campaign has spread so virulently across media and the internet that no one is immune from giving a bad take. But before we go into examining the bad takes, I got a little surprise for you, okay? We're gonna start this as an unboxing video. My grandma has given me 2 Princess Diana dolls that she bought in the 90s. I know this is a pretty dark way to start the video, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, we've got a Princess Diana in a sort of blue pantsuit sort of thing. It says handle with care. That's too dark of a joke. Okay. I'm a mess. Okay. It also came with 3 outfits. That looks like one from one of the state dinners, I guess. This sort of I'm trying to escape the paparazzi on a yacht kind of vibes. And another fancy pantsuit. This is the hefty one. Much larger version. And it looks to be Princess Diana in dress with a little bolero cape. A lot of sequins on it. Okay. I'm gonna put those back there as a metaphorical representation of the story of Diana looming over this entire story. Okay? It can't be ignored. It's the elephant in the room. As we're talking about it, just a reminder, that's there. That's always going on in the back of this whole incident. The first thing I want to look at is descriptions of the incident. Let's have a look at articles that present some of the more objective facts of this case. Okay, our first article is entitled, "What Really Happened During Prince Harry and Meghan's New York Car Chase," from CNN. I know that this article starts with some pretty emotive language at the beginning, but I promise you that it actually states factual information. There's no denying the echoes of the late Princess Diana's 1997 death in a car crash in Paris. More than 25 years on, her son and his wife were pursued through the streets of New York City this week in what their team called a near catastrophic car chase. Now, we'll talk about that statement in a bit, but let's just hold on to that. That language makes it hard not to evoke the tragic memory of circumstances that led to the loss of one of the most beloved members of the British royal family. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were in New York to attend Miss Foundation's Women of Vision Awards, where Meghan was being honored for her global advocacy to empower women and girls. Based? Absolutely based. As their first public appearance since Prince Harry returned from King Charles' coronation in London, it had initially seemed a pretty routine affair. The couple posed on the red carpet before heading inside, where Meghan later claimed her accolade. It was only after the event that the situation escalated, with the details differing depending on who you talked to. That sounds like a sinister thing to say, but that's just true. The details of any incident or event will be different depending on who is perceiving the incident and the situation in which they described the incident. Keep that in mind. The couple spokesperson described a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi trailing them for more than 2 hours, which sparked global rolling coverage. The spokesperson claimed that there were several close calls with other drivers, pedestrians, and police officers. Later, police confirmed the outlines of the account. So that is the main crux. These two explanations of the incident are not conflicting with each other. What the spokespeople for Harry and Meghan are saying seems to be corroborated by the police. They say all of the main events that they detailed are the same, but offered less colorful language, describing the situation merely as challenging. Now we'll get into why police might want to express something with less colorful language, but let's hold off on that. Questions continued to swirl Thursday over exactly what happened and for precisely how long in a city notorious for its traffic congestion. CNN has not independently verified every detail of the couple's account, but in the light of a new day, a clearer picture is emerging. Here's what we know. The couple was seen leaving the awards ceremony in a black car, but spotted later in a yellow cab. This is an important piece of information that needs to be kept in your brain while you're processing these stories. Harry and Meghan and Doria were in 2 separate cars at different parts during this incident. Some of the ways that people are going to try to discredit or dismiss this story or to downplay the severity of the incident is to confuse the entire incident that took place over multiple vehicles and to only look at the specific time where they were in a taxi cab, because that part is only a part of the incident. So put that in your noggin for a bit. Chris Sanchez, who was part of the royal security detail, told us they were immediately followed from the event by a dozen vehicles. He said he'd, quote, never seen or experienced anything like this, and that, quote, the public were in jeopardy at several points. He also explained that the couple had switched cars, quote, more than once during the incident. Thomas Buddha, who runs a private security business contracted to help the couple, corroborated Sanchez's account of reckless driving from the vehicles that tailed them in the Sussex's car swap. So again, it sounds like everybody in this story is in agreement that there was reckless driving occurring that could have endangered other people. He said the couple's convoy took a circuitous route from 23rd Street to 96th Street, up and down busy Manhattan arteries, before security brought the couple to the 19th Police Precinct on East 67th Street. From there, the couple were moved to a yellow cab, but it ended up circling the block and returning them to the police station. And again, we'll talk about why focusing on that one part of the story is not a clear picture of the entire event. Cab driver Sukhchand Singh, who also goes by Sonny in some of his other interviews, told CNN that he didn't feel under threat by the encounter with photographers, but Harry and Meghan looked, quote, nervous and scared, end quote. The couple were ultimately able to make a clean break during the midnight changeover patrol officers, which effectively caused a traffic choke point on the block, allowing security teams to spirit Harry and Meghan away, according to Buddha. To answer the question of why this elaborate game of cat and mouse unfolded, we were told by Harry's team that the couple were staying at a private residence and did not want to compromise the security of their friend's home by returning directly from the awards. We are going to look at a quote in which somebody makes the point that Harry and Meghan should have stayed somewhere else and not at somebody else's private residence. But that seems to be a little bit of victim blaming instead of looking at it and thinking, Why do the paparazzi need to aggressively pursue Harry and Meghan in this way? For what purpose does it serve other than for them to make millions of dollars and to endanger other human lives? Why should we ignore all of that and all of those questions and focus on the fact that Harry and Meghan wanted to stay with some friends? Which is like totally their right. They should be allowed to stay wherever they want to stay without their safety and security literally being threatened. But we'll get there. Meanwhile, a law enforcement source also said the pair did not stay at a hotel, but rather at a private residence on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and chose to keep the location secret so they could come and go. Statements from the NYPD, the city's mayor, and law enforcement source also back up that the couple were followed. Everybody who has given statements on this incident is in agreement that the couple was being pursued and followed in an aggressive manner that was reckless and that could have endangered other people. Though those perceptions of the events are less emotionally charged, which makes sense because they were not involved. So of course, why would they have emotionally charged language? The NYPD put out a more benign statement saying it had, quote, assisted the private security team wherein, quote, there were numerous photographers that made their transport challenging. Again, it does not conflict with anything that anybody else is saying that was there. New York City Mayor Eric Adams cast doubt on the 2-hour time frame, but added that irrespective of length, the incident was reckless and irresponsible. Now, this is the one part of the CNN article that I would push back on, because as we'll see later on, he cast doubt on the idea of a 2-hour high-speed chase, because that is implausible. But nobody was ever who was involved in that incident was making that claim. It was press and other reporters making the claim that it was a high-speed chase, but nobody that was involved said it was. The claim was that they were being reckless and that they were driving on the sidewalk, that they were weaving in and out of people on the sidewalk. But the way that the question was framed to Eric Adams was asking if it was a 2-hour high-speed chase, which he cast doubt on. It's important to understand the context in which people are making these statements, right? The rest of the article continues to go through how the photographers and the press have reacted to this incident. They're the ones that Harry and Meghan are saying caused them harm. So of course they're going to say that they did nothing wrong. But none of the other statements in the article are saying that they didn't do anything wrong, right? Everybody else is saying that this was reckless, this did occur. So I don't even really want to give what they said airtime, but you can read it. It's on the screen here. The only other tidbit from the article that I want to highlight is the last paragraph that says, one other notable element is the silence from his family. Both Buckingham Palace, home of the King, and Kensington Palace, where the Prince of Wales is based, declined to comment on the story. We know that the Sussexes did not hear from the royal family after the story broke, as some may expect in normal family circumstances. You think? You heard that your son or your brother was involved in a highly traumatizing event? In a normal family, wouldn't you want to do something? Yeah, true. But given the rift between the two sides, it is likely that there has been a broader decision that the household simply cannot respond or engage with the headlines surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan every time they have a tangle with the press. And that last line, for an article that is pretty factual, interesting word choice, a tangle with the press. Having Harry and Meghan be the subject of that sentence, when we've just described an encounter in which the press were the aggressors in the situation, it's comical. But like I said, somehow, even in the best of these articles, there are just some bad takes. There are some questionable choices being made. Another article I want to highlight on the incident is from the Washington Post. It says, Prince Harry, Meghan say they were chased by NYC paparazzi. Cab driver describes the incident. I want to focus on this because people are really narrowing in on this specific part of the incident in which they were in a cab. I feel like the press has really been focusing on the cab in this situation because the tabloids can hound that cab driver in the hopes of getting more information from him and then misrepresenting what he's saying in order to spin the media narrative, which they can't do with the driver of, say, the SUV or the people in their security detail. They can't spin it, but they can spin this poor innocent person into giving them language that they can manipulate into their stories. But if we actually listen to what the cab driver has said over and over again, we'll see this, going forward in the video, we can see that what he is saying does not contradict what we just read. Video shared on social media showed the couple entering a black SUV after leaving the award ceremony at the Ziegfeld Ballroom on West 54th Street. In an interview Wednesday, taxi driver Sucharn Singh said he picked the couple up in New York later on Tuesday night and drove them for a brief period during which it appeared they were pursued by other vehicles. So again, he's still saying the same thing. Their car was being tailed, and any type of tailing like that is dangerous and reckless driving, even if it's not at a high speed. Singh said he picked up Harry, Meghan, an older woman he didn't recognize, and a security guard in his yellow cab at about 11 p.m. outside the New York Police Department's 19th precinct on East 67th Street. In Singh's account, the guard waved him down and asked, "Do you want a fare?" Singh, who goes by Sunny, said he drove the group a block and a half west to Park Avenue before heading south. The driver said they were pursued by two vehicles, a black Honda Accord and an older gray Honda CR-V. They kept following us and were coming next to the car, Singh said. They took pictures as we stopped and were filming us. Singh, 37, who moved to the United States from India as a child, said he got the impression from the group that they had been already pursued by paparazzi before entering his vehicle. After a few minutes, Singh said the security guard grew concerned about the photographers and asked him to return to the police station. The guard thought they were too exposed and didn't want their location shared more widely, Singh said. So, the taxi driver thoroughly admits he was not the one that picked them up from the ballroom. He was not there with them for the entire pursuit. He states that it seemed from their expressions, from the things that they were talking about, that they had already been pursued at this point for quite a while. Then they got into his cab, trying to shake them off, realized that it wasn't effective because the paparazzi started to swarm the vehicle. They asked him to go back to the precinct so that they could try again with their own vehicle, and that was that. He's not saying anything that would downplay the incident at all. In fact, he's saying things that make it clear that he felt like he was one part of a much larger story of pursuit. However, the driver, again, because he has not been with them the entire time, he cannot be expected to have the same emotional reaction as Harry, Meghan, Doria, and the security team. Looking at what he says, he states, quote, "I don't think I would call it a chase," Singh said of his period driving the couple. Again, it was not a chase in that it was not a high-speed chase. But he did admit previously, like we said before, that they were being pursued, and it was clear from their expressions that they had already been pursued. He says, quote, "I never felt like I was in danger. It wasn't like a car chase in a movie." He's not saying that they weren't pursued. He's not saying that the paparazzi weren't being aggressive and swarming the vehicle. He just states that he didn't feel unsafe. He didn't think that, anything was going to happen, but he's also not them. He also hasn't had to deal with the entire incident. He only had to deal with 10 minutes of it. And he's saying it wasn't like one in a movie, but just because it didn't happen like what we imagine a high-speed pursuit from like a movie would look like, doesn't mean that the situation wasn't reckless or dangerous, and that he just didn't observe the specific incidences that could be perceived as reckless. And I would say even still, people on foot swarming a vehicle that is trying to move on the street is reckless. We're now going to watch a clip from Piers Morgan, which, oh my God, I can't believe. We're going to be watching him talking to the cab driver of the yellow taxi cab. But notice how Piers Morgan tries to encourage the taxi driver to say things that they can try to manipulate into downplaying the story, and how the fact that this guy is just an honest, straight up guy completely dashes those plans. Listen to like the way that these questions are phrased in a way that doesn't have any journalistic integrity, but is instead trying to get some sort of clip that they can use against the straw man.
Gonna pick up in New York, right?
Right, and that's true. But I mean, in your experience, was the paparazzi attention any more or less than it would be for other major celebrities?
Note the question, was this more or less than any other major celebrities? The question is to try to encourage Sunny Singh to say something like, oh yeah, this was nothing, or oh yeah, I get this all the time from the celebrities that I pick up. Sunny Singh tells the truth in this case, which isn't what Piers Morgan wanted to hear, but the way that the question is phrased is clearly like looking for an answer that is going to downplay the incident. He could have instead phrased this question as, can you describe this in relation to other instances that you've had, without implanting that idea of more or less? He could have just said, oh, was this anything like those other times?
No, for them it was more. It was a lot more, because I had other celebrities in my cab as well, but this one, because they surrounded the car and just went crazy with the camera.
And how would you
describe? Yeah, go ahead.
How would you describe?
Note that Piers Morgan cut Sunny Singh off when he's about to continue explaining how extreme this situation actually was in comparison to other times that he's picked up celebrities. Sunny Singh was actually going to give an account of what it was like to be there, and that this was in some ways over the top, that this wasn't a normal everyday incident. And Piers Morgan specifically cuts him off as he's about to explain that, because it doesn't suit Piers Morgan's narrative. Piers Morgan was hoping that he would say, oh no, like I get this all the time, or paparazzi do this all the time. And when he didn't give that response, Piers Morgan was like, oh shit, well, we can't use that. We can't use this clip because it's actually going against our argument, our narrative that we want to push. So he literally stops him to ask a different leading question. But from what Sunny Singh says, where he was about to say, like, every time we did this, or every time he's clearly about to recount how they were being pursued. Every time we turned a corner, there was a new paparazzi, or every time. And he knew that once he started going into that story, it would actually sound pretty bad.
It's been categorized that there was a 2-hour wild car chase through the streets of New York, but was the time
that must have happened before me.
Note how Piers Morgan starts off with this, oh, it's been said that there was this 2-hour long chase or whatever. And the way that Piers Morgan states it makes it sound like it's already a ridiculous claim. And when Sunny refutes it and says, well, that must have happened before they got in the car with me, again, it doesn't suit Piers Morgan's narrative. So he tries to, he just is stuck in and dodging and trying to change this into some clips that will suit Piers Morgan's interest, instead of actually listening to Sunny Singh's story, because he knows that the actual story is pretty damning.
So there was no like car chase when you were there?
Not when they got into my cab. We just went around the block, and two cars were tailing us behind us with a camera, and that was it.
And then you went back to where you'd actually picked them up?
Yes, we went back to the precinct, and then they exited, and they thanked me, and I thanked them as well, and then they exited my car.
Did they remember to pay you, Sonny?
Yeah, they paid well.
Implying, why would Piers Morgan ask if they paid him? Was he really expecting that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were not going to pay this cab driver? Again, he wanted to try to find anything in this story to try to latch onto, instead of just saying, hey, describe the incident in your own words And would you say that the paparazzi were surrounding the vehicle? And it sounds like he was saying that. Now let's talk about misrepresentations of public statements. My biggest issue with this story is how many public statements from parties involved who actually witnessed this event, that actually were present, have been misinterpreted in order to downplay the severity of the incident. In any situation, people are going to use different language to express themselves based on not only their feelings, but also the situation in which the statement is given. This is called pragmatic competence, otherwise when to say what to whom and how, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So even if someone is using less emotive words to describe a situation, especially people that are doing that because they were not physically present at the incident, it does not change the facts of any situation, right? Any given situation, the facts are what is important. And if people can corroborate those facts, the feelings that they have towards them and the language that they use to describe those facts is less important, right? Unless that language is being used in order to have the focus be on the emotion and to discard the factual statements, which is what seems to be happening with the misinformation and disinformation about this event. So for example, when the families of a victim of homicide, for example, are interviewed on TV, they tend to use a lot of expressive and emotional language to describe their trauma because they are the ones experiencing the trauma firsthand. They are a part of it and are emotionally invested in it in a way that somebody else can't not be, right? But a police press conference on that very same homicide will often use very restrictive or cautious language due to the fact that formal investigations and court proceedings need that kind of projection of impartiality. And especially when we're talking about a government organization like a police department, they have to project some level of calm, rational. But it doesn't mean that the fact that there was a homicide wasn't bad, or that the people using emotive language to describe that event are wrong or misrepresenting it or blowing it out of proportion, right? Now, I do believe this projection of impartiality from like the police, for example, can definitely swing too far in the wrong direction. As anyone who's addicted to crime docs could possibly tell you, police departments and local officials are very good at bungling up investigations, either through incompetence or through malicious intent. So take everything with a grain of salt, but take everyone with a grain of salt. However, throughout the reporting, I'm seeing descriptions of other people's statements that are focused on the language that is being used as a way to downplay the incident, but don't seem to focus on the actual facts as laid out in those statements, and how statements are being ignored entirely by people that were there that are crucial to unraveling exactly what took place. So when the facts of the incident don't make it seem like it was nothing, Instead, the writers and the talking heads of these bad takes rely on plucking random language from random people involved, or even people that aren't involved, just quoting other people that are talking about the incident out of context in a way that evokes dismissal and that let that dismissal lead the narrative of the story. Let's start by taking a look at a video by Meredith Constant, young American internet sleuth, love the name, that is entitled, "What Statements on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Car Chase Actually Said." Now, the first half of the video goes into an egregiously badly written article that implies that the NYPD said that nothing happened with this event, which she clearly debunks. Go watch it. It's great. But I wanted to highlight this part of the video where she actually reads the statements from Harry and Meghan and the NYPD and goes through exactly what each party is implying happened. And spoilers, they are not conflicting with each other.
What was actually said? First, we're going to look at the spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Here's what the statement says. Quote, last night, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Miss Raglan were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi.
Note, they never said high-speed chase. They never said that it was like a movie and that they were running around. They said that the way in which the paparazzi pursued them was aggressive and that it was near catastrophic in that it could have injured a variety of different parties involved, who they later go on to explain why they thought it was near catastrophic. What could have happened based on what they witnessed? Everybody involved is saying that that occurred.
This relentless pursuit lasting over 2 hours resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers.
Again, they reference why they called it near catastrophic, that they witnessed potential collisions with multiple innocent bystanders. So it was near catastrophic, right? Nobody is saying that those near collisions didn't happen in all of this, other than maybe the paparazzi themselves, but they can't be trusted if they're the ones that are being accused of it, right?
While being a public figure comes with a level of interest from the public, it should never come at the cost of anyone's safety.
And that's the key as well. They understand that they are public figures and that there is some level of interest in them, but at what cost? At what point should you put it down and say, oh, okay, look, like, it's not worth possibly endangering the lives of other people for this photo. There needs to be some way to dissuade people from doing reckless things in the pursuit of a photograph of 2 people that the majority of the population are never going to meet. Somebody could get hurt in the pursuit of some photos.
These images, given the ways in which they were obtained, encourages a highly intrusive practice that is dangerous to all involved, end quote. And I think considering what nearly happened, one could categorize it as nearly catastrophic. They're also hoping to convey the severity of what can happen when the paparazzi act like this. Their statement is going to be more emotional. I might have changed the wording on this relentless pursuit lasting over 2 hours. I might have said this entire ordeal or something like that, because I could see how you could quickly read this and think that they were being chased for the entirety of this.
I agree with what she's saying here. I think I would also have changed the wording on this because, as did happen, it's too easy to grab these words and to strip them of all meaning and then to hype up what Harry and Meghan are saying in order to tear down the straw man that they have created of what they actually said. I mean, it was going to happen anyway. That's the other thing. It was going to happen anyway, that it was going to be done like this. But all those words together, media heathens could just pick apart those words and construct a sentence that they didn't really say in order to dismiss the claims of the straw man that they created. What I wish they would have highlighted is moved up that idea of the collisions with other people, moved that up into the first paragraph. I think this statement would have also done well with some sort of next steps for where they were going to take this and what their sort of thought process was, because I think if they had hammered home more on the fact that this should be illegal.
There were stops made at the precinct, car changes, etc. Let's see if the police statement contradicts that. Quote, on Wednesday evening, May 16th, the NYPD assisted the private security team protecting the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. There were numerous photographers that made their transport challenging. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex arrived at their destination and there were no reported collisions, summonses, injuries, or arrests in regard, end quote. These are not 2 different statements. They're saying the same thing in different ways. But also from the police perspective, they don't want to whip up and cause fear in the public.
And this comes back to the pragmatic competence angle, how we use language to convey ideas. Like she's saying, a police incident report to the public is going to try to assuage the fear of the public. You don't want your police department putting out statements that are like, oh my God, the paparazzi almost ran over like numerous pedestrians, blah, blah. That's not a great look for the city of New York. So they want to downplay or minimize what happened, but what they're saying is not contradictory. They say that there were no reported collisions and summonses, injuries, etc., but Meghan and Harry never said that there were. They said that they saw things that could have resulted in near collisions that would make the driving reckless. And the police statement doesn't say that this type of behavior wasn't reckless.
They want to ensure people that they know it is safe to live and visit New York City. Think about those tourism dollars. You also want to display competency. Don't want those budgets being slashed. The statement from the police shouldn't look like the statement from the spokesperson for the Sussexes. One has emotion tied to it, which is understandable. The police want to ensure that the public know that they're safe and that there were no collisions, summonses, injuries. The Duke and Duchess's statement doesn't say there were either, but conflict sells stories.
Exactly. It's about trying to make it seem like there is some sort of conflict between what Harry and Meghan are saying and other people that are involved in the incident, when there is none, when it doesn't exist. They don't say things in exactly the same wording, using the exact same language, because that's not how language works. And yet they will take two different people talking about the same incident in two different circumstances, and because they don't use the same words, claim that there is some sort of conflict in their statements when there is none.
And now for Eric Adams. Online chatter is very focused on one sentence that he says during one of his statements.
I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase.
Yes, it's hard to believe because no one said high-speed car chase for 2 hours. That is not in either one of the statements. Nowhere in the statement does it say a high-speed car chase. It says highly aggressive. It does say car chase.
Exactly. The media asked the mayor a question based on a faulty premise, right? It's like the question, when did you stop beating your wife, right? If you ask the mayor, do you find it probable that a high-speed 2-hour car chase occurred during this incident? He's going to say no, because nobody that's involved in that incident is making that claim, because it's an improbable claim. But if he had been asked, do you find it probable that they were being pursued by paparazzi for 2 hours, and that there were possibly multiple instances in which the paparazzi almost hit innocent bystanders in this thing, and that it was a chaotic and nerve-wracking situation for all these people, I'm sure you would say yes, because that is what happened. It doesn't detract from anything.
But let's look at what else Eric Adams says in his statement.
If it's 10 minutes, a 10-minute chase is extremely dangerous in New York City. We have a lot of traffic, a lot of movement, a lot of people are using our streets. Any type of high-speed chase that involves something of that nature is inappropriate.
He says high speed again, but he also reiterates that any amount of time someone is chased, pursued, tailed is wrong, and it's bad. I don't know where he got high speed from. Sometimes people misspeak. It's frustrating, because on the one hand, the media has a responsibility to report accurately.
He got the idea because the idea was implanted in the question itself. I don't think he even misspoke. I think that he was literally trying to respond to the media's narrative because they asked the question in a way that kind of manipulated him into having to give that response. And he, in fact, in that clip says high speed as if he's emphasizing the point that he doesn't believe a high speed chase could have occurred for 2 hours.
That there was a 2-hour high-speed chase.
I think he kind of knew that that was part of the bait, too. I wish he had been better at conveying that that doesn't negate the fact that this incident occurred. I also want to look at this New York Times article entitled Prince Harry, Meghan, the Paparazzi in a Chaotic Night in Manhattan, which, although it does state factual information, I also don't like some of the language that it uses to, again, try to downplay the incident itself. I'm fine with the New York Times saying that this incident is more complicated than it seems at first glance, but I don't like some of the wordings of some of the things that they put in this article. The byline reads, the initial description of the episode in Midtown Manhattan recalled the chase that killed Harry's mother. But the fuller picture was more complicated. The statement was alarming, unmistakably evocative of the car chase that killed Princess Diana 26 years ago. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have been involved in a near-catastrophic car chase at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi, according to an unnamed spokesperson for the couple. That story of a chaotic and dangerous pursuit through Midtown Manhattan on Tuesday night ricocheted all over the world on Wednesday morning, making headlines on both sides of the Atlantic. CNN, which like Sky News and outlets all over the world provided minute-by-minute updates, reported that a member of the couple's security team said the episode, quote, could have been fatal. But as more details emerged on Wednesday from the accounts of the police and a taxi driver who was briefly involved, the picture became more complicated. It's interesting that they focus on the accounts of, quote, the police and the taxi driver who was briefly involved, when they could focus on the descriptions of the people who were actually there, who were actually present. Like, the police weren't present there. The taxi driver was present, but for a brief period of time. But also, the accounts of the police and the taxi driver make the picture more complicated. I mean, yeah, in that having different perspectives on an event complicates the narrative because different perspectives offer different perspectives. Like, what else can I say? But the police and the taxi driver don't seem to be contradicting what was put in those previous two paragraphs. The writing on that is just not, it's not good. Like, it's insinuating things that are, it illustrated any number of issues surrounding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Their incandescent fame and the news media's endless appetite for stories about them, their frosty relationship with the crown, and their fight for a royal security detail, and their determination to avoid the paparazzi's lenses, surely informed by the tragic death of Diana, Harry's mother, as she rode in a car speeding away from them in Paris in 1997. What I don't like about this is, why is the Duke and Duchess of Sussex part here? Why is this focused on them when they're the victims in this situation? No matter who's telling this, they're the ones being pursued. And it's interesting that they almost seem to blame their incandescent fame and the news media's endless appetite for stories about them. The sentence makes it sound like they are the subject. The news media's endless appetite for stories about them is not a product of them doing anything. It's a product of the media going crazy to get photos and stories about them so that they can generate millions of dollars of revenue for Rupert Murdoch. They're not involved in that, right? That incandescent fame, they're not asking for it. They just want to do them. And also the description of their frosty relationship as if they created the frost, which, I mean, I've got videos on that. Go watch it. Go watch my last one. It's all about where that frosty relationship came from. So go watch part 3 of Prince Harry's Spare. But again, that their frosty relationship, putting that there, the possessive, to focus on the Duke and Duchess, and to deny like the crown's involvement in that frosty relationship, and to state it as their fight for a royal security detail instead of their royal security detail was removed from them by the palace. They're fighting for their security because, as we saw in this case, they need security. Such a strange way to point at them when they're really not the ones we should be scrutinizing. We should be scrutinizing the paparazzi and the Crown. Then the story details all of the things that we've already discussed, but then we get back to the yellow cab. He reiterates again, quote, all of a sudden the paparazzi came out of nowhere and just started snapping pictures, he said, adding that he heard one of the women from the back say, oh my God. Quote, they were nervous, Mr. Singh said. His wife looked scared and Harry was nervous, and the other lady was very quiet. He also again states that he wasn't personally afraid. Quote, I wasn't afraid, he said. They didn't grow up in New York. We're going to get down it, but the New Yorker attitude from this entire story, I hate it so much. I hate New York. I grew up around Boston, okay, so it's deep in my bones. A lot of people are taking this idea of like, they didn't grow up in New York. They should know what it's like to be in New York. You got to know the tips and tricks of New York to get around here. That sort of attitude is a way for New York to just deflect from any criticism of their shitty fucking city. Why are we bringing that up? Sure, they didn't grow up in New York, but it's also like, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be resolved. Like, New York shouldn't be a place where terrible shit happens all the time. It just seems like very self-deprecating, this whole, they didn't grow up in New York. They didn't know that it sucks. The rest of the article goes into all of the legal issues that Harry has been trying to pursue in the UK. A lot of British tabloids. He's suing the British Home Office over his security arrangements, which again, back at the top of the article when they were saying their fight for security, again, in a way that seemed to imply that that was their problem. It actually sounds like if you read further down and look at the facts of the case, it's really because the royal family did an oopsie. Harry is trying to get police protection for himself because he is still, whether he likes it or not, stuck in the royal family. So he needs to be protected in the way that any other royal family member would be. They continue to portray all of these things going on with the legal battles and the estrangement from the royal family as being like purely from Harry and Meghan's perspective, as if they were the cause of all of those things. And it's just nonsense. We can see here where we start to get into the like, quote, royal experts, royal watchers say this, sort of stuff, that this is all just like press garbage. Why is the New York Times putting this shit in their articles? But it ends on a truly infuriating portion. We end with like a little bit of victim blaming. The New York Times could have written an article in which they talked about what could be done about paparazzi who are allowed to do these types of things and really question that. Instead, they leave us with this idea of questioning whether Harry and Meghan contributed to this, contributed to the fame by creating media, being content creators, essentially. But the couple's eager courtship of the American media has also fueled a separate cottage industry of photographers here who seek to capture their every public appearance, driven by demand from gossip sites like TMZ and Page Six. The popularity of the Netflix documentary and Harry's memoir has only raised Americans' appetite for these images and for other insights into the life of the royals living in their midst. Again, saying that because they did the Netflix documentary and Harry wrote his memoir, that has piqued Americans' curiosity into them, and therefore they are to be blamed for the amount of paparazzi tailing them in New York? What? Okay. And the British royalty has long proved a surefire draw for American media companies seeking views, readers, and clicks. Why don't we get into that story, right? Why don't we talk about how the royal family is engaging in this like clickbait culture? Nope. To cite just one example, Harry and Meghan's 2018 wedding at Windsor Castle was viewed by 29 million Americans, according to Nielsen. And then they say that that's more than William and Kate's, which is, funny, slight dig at the end. But why does the fact that Americans were so interested in watching the royal wedding, how does that factor into this incident in any way? Again, it seems like a deflection from the actual problem here, which is the way in which paparazzi are allowed to pursue celebrities in reckless ways with no repercussions. The next thing that's annoying me about all of this is no empathy whatsoever. I know, facts don't care about your feelings and all that, but feelings are factual, right? They exist. We can look objectively at the facts, but the facts are that the paparazzi are crowding around a man in a car whom they know full well had his mother die under similar circumstances. The fact that Harry's mother died under very similar circumstances actually makes the behavior of the paparazzi and the news organizations that work with those paparazzi, it doesn't make them look very good. The only way that it makes them look good is if you remove any empathy for what Harry and Meghan and Doria were going through. Let's watch LBC's take on this.
It's very, very hard to move fast in New York. But taking this at face value, just think a little bit about what it means. When you remember how Prince Harry's mother, Diana, died on the streets of Paris, fleeing paparazzi in just the same way, then it's hard to begin to imagine what that must have felt like for Harry, or Meghan, or her mother, Doria, who was with them in the taxi.
Now, the fact that this man, I can't remember this guy on LBC, the fact that he says with them in the taxi, again, is like the focusing on the taxi part when the taxi part is a very minimal part of the story. It again speaks to the sort of misinformation, disinformation flying around in the media space. But at least he has some empathy for what they must have felt like with all of this looming on in the background.
He has been spied on and pursued all his life. The people who do this, trying to sell pictures to the papers who think the rest of us want them, do we? Really?
Exactly. Do we really want a photo of somebody in a car? Why do we want these photos of them if we know that in the pursuit of those photographs, innocent people could have been harmed? Why would we want those photos? And the press is the one telling us, we want them, we want them, we want them. I'm pretty sure there's a line for most people. If you showed me a nice photo of somebody and I was like, oh, that's cute, this really nice photo. And the person who took the photo turned to me and said, yeah, and I like chased them on the street to get this photo and I had to like duck and dodge. I would be like, okay, like it's a nice photo, but like, it's just a photo of a stranger. Like, I don't think that I'm comfortable knowing that about the photo.
Do we really? Are revolting individuals, and any publication which touches their corrupt wares deserves, in my view, to be blacklisted.
Well said. Let's take a look now at an article entitled Royal Friends Mock Harry and Meghan as NYC Car Chase Story Unravels. Now, that title... what is unraveling? The story is not unraveling. Everybody is corroborating the story. What part of the story is unraveling? It's just a very obnoxious title. I also don't like that this writer, Tom Sykes, has labeled himself a, quote, royalist correspondent. Who are you? Who are you? Let's look. Who are you? This is hilarious. Charles and William want distance from Harry and Meghan? That there is distance. There's distance that they caused. All right, this sounds like a true believer, okay. Friends of the British royal family, already off to a great start. Who are we talking about? Friends of the British royal family have mocked Harry and Meghan's account of a, quote, near catastrophic car chase. One friend of Prince William's quipped, recollections may vary. A friend of Prince William in the UK who wasn't involved in this in any way had a quip. Okay. I don't, what am I supposed to do with that? Friends of the British royal family have mocked Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's account of a, quote, near catastrophic car chase in New York after photographs, videos, and other participants' accounts gave a very different and much less perilous impression of the evening's events, with one friend of Prince William quipping, quote, "Recollections may vary." After photographs, videos, and other participants' accounts gave a different impression, I don't think any of the photos or videos are giving a different account of what happened. All of the videos I've seen have shown paparazzi surrounding the vehicle. Other participants have said that there was a pursuit. I'm not sure why the way that this entire first paragraph is organized. Why are we focusing on the friends of the British royal family instead of the witnesses that were actually involved in the incident? This sounds petty as fuck. Did William write this? The friend added, quote, "I thought they were leaving the royal family for a quieter life. If flashbulbs give Harry flashbacks, I don't understand why he is going to award ceremonies," end quote. Where do I even begin with this? I thought they were leaving for a quieter life. At no point did they say they were leaving the royal family for a quieter life. They said that they were stepping back in their responsibilities. They wanted to move to Canada in order to do their duties in a way that didn't involve the royal rota. But I don't remember them ever saying that they wanted a quieter life. If flashbulbs give Harry flashbacks, I mean, are we dismissing his mental health here? Like, if he is triggered by them, I don't know. This sounds petty as fuck. I don't understand why he is going to award ceremonies. He was going to support his wife. Like, he should be allowed to do that without fearing for his safety. Everybody's got so twisted. Did William literally write this? Asked if William, whose spokesperson has declined to comment on the incident, would at least take Harry's side on the issue of invasive paparazzi, the friend said, quote, "William and Catherine have put up with shit like this in the past. Everyone understands his anger at the photographers, but making hysterical statements doesn't help matters, especially when, as the Queen might have said, recollections may vary." Yeah, William and Kate have put up with shit like this in the past, but then why don't you criticize it? Why don't you comment on why it's wrong and what solutions we should take legally, legislatively, culturally, socially? What steps can we take? You're the royal family. You're supposed to be our leaders, right? If not like in a governmental sense, you're supposed to be thought leaders. You're supposed to be shining examples. So if you're in that position, why are you instead saying, well, we put up with this shit in the past and we didn't make all these statements? Okay, well, why don't you make a statement? Why don't you criticize these actions if the anger is understandable? If it's rational, righteous anger, then you should do something about it. A friend of King Charles, who again might just be King Charles, whose office has also said he won't be making a formal comment, told the Daily Beast, quote, "Charles will completely understand Harry being upset at being pursued by the paparazzi. He knows how scary it can be. But he has always tried to get Harry to understand that complaining about photographers or the media is pointless. It just makes it all worse." It's not complaining. He's justifiably saying that these actions were reckless. It's not it's not just like a little grievance, a little complaint. He's saying there was wrongdoing. The PR coming out of the royal family right now, why? Why have they made this choice? Again, we know from what we're hearing from Prince Harry, from like the 60-minute interview, for example, we know that when an article has quotes from a friend of a source close to, that it's often coming from those press offices, very calculatedly, even potentially glanced at and okayed by the royal family members involved. Why are they making the choice to continue to dismiss Harry and say, oh, he should be upset about the paparazzi, but he shouldn't do anything about it. He has a right to be angry, but he, for some reason, doesn't have a right to do anything about the anger that they say is justified. Doesn't make any sense. Why shouldn't he do something about it? Notice how the article starts out with the most unnecessary information. In real journalism, you want to put the most pressing information, the most important information at the very top of the article, and then to put less and less relevant information near the bottom of the article, because oftentimes when you're working in journalism, articles need to be adjusted for how long or short they are. So you want to put things that are less relevant at the bottom, just in case you need to cut the story. You can just cut the last couple of paragraphs or whatever to trim it down, to make sure that the first thing people are getting is the major important information. According to this Daily Beast writer, the most important information is that all of the people in the royal family and all of their friends and confidants are petty bitches. Why is that the most important information? He even goes on to pretend to share any empathy with Harry by saying, "No one doubts the sincerity of Harry's anxiety, especially given the manner of his mother's death. Few would envy him a life constantly punctuated by photographers jumping out of bushes and following him in cars. He has said that he suffers symptoms akin to PTSD when confronted by camera flashes. I think he does suffer from PTSD. I don't think he suffers from them akin to PTSD. That sounds like distancing language, but he goes on to say, that, however, does not affect the simple truth that a protracted, out-of-control pursuit through the city simply does not tally with the reality of New York's traffic-clogged streets, a point made by the mayor, Eric Adams, who said, quote, I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase. I would find it hard to believe that there was a 2-hour high-speed chase has nothing to do with the actual description from the Sussexes of a, quote, relentless pursuit lasting over 2 hours. It's a very manipulative reading of the situation. A spokesman for the NYPD also appeared to play down the severity of the incident. They're downplaying the severity in that they are not trying to terrify the public by using super emotive language, but that's just because they are a different party involved with different interests, like we've already talked about. He then reports the things that we read in the CNN article, which demonstrate something that factually still doesn't sound very good. The facts themselves sound pretty damning and scary, but then goes on to dismiss it by saying that this was not a Netflix remake of The French Connection was made abundantly clear by comments from taxi driver Sukhchar Singh, who drove the party, which included a security guard from a police station for a few blocks as they tried to lose the Paps. Nobody said it was The French Connection. Nobody is saying that. You're taking that and projecting that onto all of these statements, but nobody has said that it was like The French Connection. He then goes on to describe the social media backlash, which again it's describing social media misinformation and disinformation and their reaction to that misinformation and disinformation. Firstly, they are using the idea that there are photos in which Meghan is smiling as some sort of damning evidence against their statement. But again, we can't dig into how deeply stupid that is. If you know anything about media literacy and reading a photograph is a snapshot of a particular incident. And we can't analyze people's body expressions in one particular moment in order to assess some sort of situation or emotional state, right? And then quotes the photo agency that is obviously going to deny wrongdoing, and then goes on to say, hashtag Harry and Meghan exposed was one of the politer hashtags to be trending on Twitter by Thursday evening. What does this have to do with anything? What people are saying on Twitter, how does that feed into the story and what the facts actually are? It doesn't. It's just absolute filler. It's just, the lack of integrity on reporting on this by sandwiching the actual facts of the case between lots of like speculation and people going off of misleading reporting and making statements based off of misleading reports. Why would you sandwich all of the crucial information, that part about what CNN actually reported and what people are actually saying happened? Why is that in the middle of this article? Well, I know why. They want anybody that has a lack of media literacy to scroll through, and all they're going to see is this headline, some stuff about Harry's friends, some random PR executive's thoughts on the matter who wasn't involved, wasn't there, in fact, is a London-based PR executive, doesn't even live in the United States, and they want to mislead people and to sow the seeds of doubt like fucking Russian propagandists, like literal Russian bots. The last thing I want to cover is bad talk shows giving bad takes. Now, talk shows rely on all of these strong personalities at the table, but the problem is that their perspectives become almost like a comical distillment of just their personalities instead of an actual discussion of factual information. It is another way of just commenting on media spin. But media spin is often inaccurate. It doesn't matter if you're the New York Times, you can still give a bad take, feed into some sort of weird conspiracies that Harry and Meghan like did this as a whole psyops or whatever. The first one I want to look at is This Morning. I don't know very much about This Morning, but they have on who I think is like a royal expert, royal correspondent, to talk about the incident.
To Harry and Meghan, who once again seem to be the talk of everything. A spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess.
They seem to be the talk of everything because they're being relentlessly pursued by the paparazzi. If the paparazzi would leave them alone, they wouldn't be the talk of everybody. Like, do you see like the Darvo going on here? Like, they're not the ones that are antagonizing the paparazzi. The paparazzi are antagonizing them and trying to pursue them. They don't want to be the talk. They don't want to be pursued. They've made that very clear. So already the framing is wild to me.
Of Sussex yesterday claimed that Prince Harry and Meghan and their mother Doria were involved in a near catastrophic car chase involving paparazzi on Tuesday night. So this allegedly happened after the couple had attended these awards where we saw these lovely pictures of them together. The statement said that they were in relentless pursuit which lasted more than 2 hours and resulted in multiple near collisions. The problem is here there seems to be a different side of this story coming from the New York Police Department.
We've already said there is no other side from the New York Police Department. The statement that they gave totally corroborated what they said. There is no disagreement here. They can use different words and less emotive language and still reach the same conclusion as to the facts.
Yes, and so the stories moved very quickly to who's absolutely right about this, whose version of events is right. Were Meghan and Harry, was their spokesperson kind of exaggerating when they said it was 2 hours and there were near collisions? But I think that takes us away, I suppose, from the main, what I think we should be thinking about in relation to this story, which is, given what happened to Princess Diana, to Harry's mother, the way in which she died. Actually, I think Harry has spoken very movingly about that in his book and in interviews about the long-lasting impact that's had on him and his brother's life.
Excellent. A good take, finally, from a royal expert being invited on here. Notice how the interviewers go into the question very leadingly and saying, there's some conflicts here. There's some conflicting reports here. Harry and Meghan at it again. And this person literally goes like, let's just like, look around you.
Look around you.
Let's not kid ourselves here. Like, there is some precedent here to be thought of, you know?
You would expect for him still to be caught up in paparazzi chases, and I don't think there's any question that there was that going on. Obviously, the ins and outs of it, how long did it last, how serious was it?
Even the royal correspondent can't deny the facts that it happened. And this idea of like sowing the doubt on the facts and what happened, like sowing the seeds of like, well, we don't know exactly every little detail. Yeah, we don't. We don't know every little detail yet, but we know that it happened and we know that it's bad, right? Like we know it's bad for another human being to drive in a reckless manner or to pursue someone in a reckless manner to get a photograph.
I can't imagine how that might feel. So I think we have to be quite careful about criticising them for exaggerating, because, when you know your mother died like that and it's had this long-lasting impact, I just can't imagine what it must feel like to be in a car with your wife and I think her mother and the trauma that must bring up.
So
it must
triggering.
Be awful.
So triggering. And if you read his book, you can see, because virtually every chapter there is mention of
a reference to it.
Great depth about that.
They know that they can't F with Diana. They can't fuck with Diana's legacy, so they try so hard. Oh, but yes, Diana, yes. And then they're gonna go off into like trying to spin it again.
The New York Police Department have said whilst there were numerous photographers that made their transport challenging, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex arrived at their destination. There were no reported collisions, summonses, injuries or arrests, which I think they said. And you said they've got to be careful about them exaggerating. This is when it gets spiraled, it becomes something else.
Nothing they said made it sound like an exaggeration. There were no collisions. Harry and Meghan said that in their statement. There were near collisions and it was reckless. And the police department is also saying that it was reckless. And they are investigating. And we also know that like Harry has put his phone up and has videoed some of this to demonstrate why it was reckless. And he's probably turned that over to the investigative team. So there is no conflict here. He's making it sound like the New York Police Department like brought them down to earth from their statement, but their statements are not contradictory in any way.
Rosary legs, and suddenly they were going at 80 miles an hour, which I think most people who heard that thought, how do you do that in New York?
Who said that? Who said 80 miles an hour? Who? You?
But nevertheless, Nick, thank you for joining us. He's off the radio now. As Sonia was saying there, on a personal level, for this to happen, given the history, that's got to be triggering.
Oh, of course it has. I'm reminded of the words of the late, great Queen Elizabeth II when she said, recollections may vary, and I think we might have that here.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Didn't we just see that same comment made in the Daily Beast article? Why are all of these people who are trying to dismiss Harry and Meghan making the same jokes?
You're absolutely right. And we've looked at this quite closely this morning. I know New York, as we all do. I actually lived and worked in New York. There's no way you're going to be able to do 80 miles. And we're talking about the center of Manhattan.
Again, I hate people that just keep going into the New Yorker attitude. I live in New York. I know what it's like to live in New York. You gotta make it here or you're gonna break it here. Like, okay. Tone it down.
Did they
There's no
say
way you're
80
going to be...
miles an hour? Did
don't
they
think they
say
did.
that? I
No,
don't
that's
think
just
they
been
said
created.
that. I think that's a...
Yeah.
Did they?
No, there was it. Even the mayor referred to, quotes, the high-speed police chase.
Notice the spin. They do some sort of journalistic integrity here, and they say, did they say 80 miles an hour, even though they themselves said that? They're fact-checking themselves in real time, I think. And then they note, oh no, they never said that. And then the LBC presenter says, well, but the mayor made a comment about the high-speed chase, and he made that comment in reference to a question that referenced a high-speed chase. What do these two things have to do with each other? If the idea is that Harry and Meghan exaggerated these claims and they never said that it was 80 miles an hour, why does it matter that the mayor said that it was unlikely that this high-speed chase occurred? They never made that claim. So he spun it to talk about something that doesn't even make sense. Oh, I can't watch more of this. All right, we got stuff to do. All right, the next clip. Prince Harry and Meghan's, quote, paparazzi car chase, taxi driver goes silent from Today Show Australia. Something I didn't know until I became, oh my God, involved in this like whole royal family like online space, is I did not realize that Australian media is so conservative to the point of Murdoch levels of conspiracy. It's like Fox News, like levels of conspiracy on the air. Is Today owned by Murdoch? Because it literally, the amount of conspiracy pushing about the royals is really Trumpian. It's crazy. So they invited on the taxi driver and he didn't show up for their meeting. So they instead decided they were going to talk to the royal editor of the Daily Mail instead. Now, I mean, the royal editor of the Daily Mail is definitely a weird choice to go from someone that was an actual eyewitness to this event to someone whose literal job it is to work with the royal family to spread their propaganda. Let's see.
Rusty Myers joins us now with some more on this story. Rusty, have you seen the driver?
Well, the big question is, was he silent or was he silenced, Carl? I mean,
I like the callback to the Oprah Winfrey interview, but why are we putting this conspiracy onto the taxi driver not showing up to go on Today Show Australia? He's not being silenced. He just didn't show up. And nothing that he's said conflicts with what the narrative is anyway. So there's conspiracy where there is no conspiracy.
I mean, listen, this is still bubbling under this story. We've heard from the taxi driver, although you haven't, unfortunately, but he has been speaking and said that, it all seems a bit dramatic, I think. And once we've scratched the surface of this story, I think that Harry and Meghan might be a little bit disappointed on what's landed on the newsstand.
What? I don't think I've read anything from the taxi driver or seen anything from the taxi driver in which he said it was dramatic. They're putting words into his mouth.
The last 24 hours, because, it was all full of high drama, very emotive language. So we chased through the streets of New York, a 2-hour car chase, very chaotic. And it seems that everybody else involved in this
that did happen, and he's about to say everybody else contradicts this, but everybody else agrees with that. It was all of those things.
Story has sort of knocked it down a peg or two. We've heard from the NYPD saying that yes, it was a bit chaotic, but not catastrophic. You've heard from the New York mayor questioning whether there could be a 2-hour car chase in the.
He wasn't questioning that because there was nothing in their statement that said that for him to question. He never questioned their recollection of the event. Oh my God. We're not going to watch all of this because I can't.
The city of New York, and perhaps we haven't heard the full side of the story for Harry and Meghan. I wonder why.
Rusty, is it just the public calling bulltish on this, or what?
Huh?
Well, listen, I'm not too sure. I'm sure it was a little bit scary for them. Harry has said in the past that he doesn't like photographers being around him. The flashing cameras.
Yeah, okay, all of that is true, and we're probably going to end it here because I can't deal with this anymore. But notice that the question was like, so now the public doesn't believe their story. Like the way that she phrased that question, it turns it into like, well, this is what the public is saying. I don't give a fuck what the public is saying. Tell me the facts. Tell me what has actually been said. Why all of this spin? Why not actually read out all the statements? There's not a contradiction here. Why are we talking about what other people are saying based on the reporting instead of just doing the reporting?
The shutters and whatnot. But we have heard just recently from the former head of the Royal Security, a chap called Di Davies, who I've worked with many a time, and he said, at the very least, he can't believe that they were put in a taxi cab.
Somebody that wasn't there, that doesn't work for them, why do I care what that person says? What information is it giving me about what actually happened?
4x4 put into another car after being taken to the police station. So I think all round this is a bit of a mess. I mean, another report said Harry and Meghan were up till 1:30 in the morning checking the news websites to see what pictures had been used. I mean,
where is that information coming from? I'm gonna need a source on that. Even if that were true, why does that change what happened? Why would that change anything? And the way that he stated that was they were up until 1 a.m. as if they were like furiously trying to see, did we get in the papers? Like, we're power hungry. We want that media attention, which is like a supervillain type thing that most humans don't do. Instead of the most obvious explanation being they were just part of this incident. They finally got home at 1 a.m. and then they had to deal with the aftermath of being in this horrible situation, in having to like draft statements, in having to see who has these photos, see if they can try to put some sort of like legal action into place, right? I don't think that at 1 a.m. they were like greedily rubbing their hands. Yes, did we get any like publicity from being hounded that we didn't ask to happen? Unless they're saying that like it's a conspiracy and they like called all these paparazzi to hound them. The story that he's presenting is unrealistic.
I mean, like I said, I think they might be a bit disappointed about how this has landed, to be honest.
This is what happens, though, Rusty, don't you reckon, when you try and make up a narrative? And obviously they're filming.
The way that he says they're make up a narrative. They didn't make up a narrative. Oh, God, I can't. It's going to break my brain. The last one is The View, and The View has always, in my entire adult life, has been a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't know the cast of the current View very well. I haven't watched it in a long time. Let's see some bad takes. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg is already like bad take princess, okay? She is the queen of bad takes.
Yesterday we talked about Cosby, and I said what I've always said. Innocent until proven guilty in the United States of America, because that's our law.
Let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race.
Of bad victim-blaming takes. So let's strap in.
This stuff went on last night, apparently Tuesday night, in Manhattan, where Prince Harry and Meghan were followed by paparazzi while leaving the Ziegfeld Theater. Their spokesperson called it a near-catastrophic car chase. Others said it...
Again, Whoopi's expression there, it's giving me more skepticism, which already is making me a little nervous, but okay.
Wasn't bad. But I think people in New York know if it was possible to have car chases in New York, we'd all make it to the theater on time. But I think their spokesperson...
Again, take a drink every time there's this New Yorker bravado for no reason. New York is a shitty place, and you better know how to survive it and make it in New York. We can't even get down to the theater on time. What? Okay, I hate this. I hate this reaction from New Yorkers. It's like you shouldn't be proud that your city is a terrible place.
Reference something that you generally would reference in Los Angeles. That's where you have chases. That's where you can move at high speeds. Right.
Whoopi Goldberg, are you saying that they literally lied? Like they fabricated this and they imagined that this happened in LA? Like what is the claim here? That's very bizarre.
I think they were dealing with aggressive paparazzi.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was where, you know, you're watching on TV like this, watching the cars go, because, you know, you can't, it just doesn't work in New York.
No, I mean, sometimes I'm in the city and I hear an ambulance trying to get through, and I think that person's dead.
Yeah.
Again, probably true. You shouldn't be happy that New York is a piece of shit. But yes, they were aggressively followed by the paparazzi. Nobody was saying that it was a high-speed chase. Why are we focusing on words that were not said? Why are we focused on things that were never claimed to be? I know that I shouldn't expect more from The View, but I'm kind of expecting more.
Yeah.
That person is dead.
Because you can't get through. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I think, though, you know, the spokesperson, what they said was this near catastrophic car chase.
Yeah.
But there,
That's LA,
no one
those are
ever,
LA words.
no one ever claimed that there was a high-speed chase. And I think when we think about chases, we think about high-speed chases.
O.J. Simpson.
Exactly, we think about that. But what's interesting to me is these e-bikes were involved. You know, those little electric bikes that you see all over New York, they're real menaces. A lot of them don't have license
And they don't
plates.
have helmets
They don't have
either.
helmets.
Yeah.
And I can understand how, I don't think we should assign, you know, feelings to them. If they felt scared, I will grant them that. And I think that, you know, when you...
Literally the best take I've heard. Literally the best take. Yes, she rightly points out that nobody ever said it was high speed. She mentions this idea that these bikes that were involved are known to cause a lot of issues in these congested areas where they whip around. Like she said, they don't have license plates. They're driving in unsafe ways. They're not protecting themselves or others. Based.
Look at a situation like this where his mother died of a catastrophic car chase.
Yeah.
And he knows that, and she knows that. I wouldn't want to be in a situation where e-bikes and sedans are sort of following me aggressively around the city. And I think they were trying not to lead them to their sanctuary where they ultimately were going to stay.
But when someone puts a word on something like chase, that is something that you can't do it here. The bikes.
The thing is, the word chase doesn't necessarily mean high speed. That's why we have the phrase high speed chase. A chase. 1, pursue in order to catch or catch up with. And an act of pursuing someone or something. Goodness, I can't believe we're arguing over the definitions of words when Whoopi clearly doesn't know what it means.
If the bikes were chasing you, they would have to be steady at your pace where your car is.
Apparently they
so
were.
They were not.
That's what's being reported.
Part of the problem is there are 9,000, I'm going to get to it, 9,000 different stories and a clip.
There are not 9,000 different stories. Different people can describe the same incident, and it's not quote unquote different stories. If all the facts presented are the same, it's one story with multiple perspectives. We can't do this again. We can't do this again and listen to all of that again.
And I also think that the terms they chose were misleading. So in addition to chase, what they meant by catastrophic is not to them, possibly. It was to the paparazzi.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. We read the thing. They weren't saying it was going to be catastrophic to the paparazzi. They said that it could have been catastrophic to the pedestrians and the NYPD officers that were around. Like, we're just inventing things that don't exist. Well,
and I think when you word it that way, it does feed trolls saying, oh, was there a chase and it was catastrophic? And I read it that way. When I first read it, I thought, oh my God, this is happening to them too.
It is happening to them again. It is happening again. Yes, they didn't die, but it's clear that the same circumstances are happening again.
And then I read in, but regardless of, you're right, they were probably scared. I think it was misrepresented in the language they released, but I do also think that everyone can agree there's got to be better regulation on paparazzi because even if it weren't this...
The first person to actually point out what the story should be about. It should be about paparazzi and the boundaries that should be put in place so that paparazzi have to behave in ethical and moral ways.
There are ways, they get really dangerous. They don't chase me, so I can't speak from personal experience. But I mean, maybe one. But I've been around people that have been chased and harassed and been there when you feel yourself saying, get away, there are kids here, and you find yourself thinking, you know, where's the humanity? And I know they're trying to sell these pictures and get food, but there's gotta be some deal that is struck that doesn't allow people to become parasitic hazards.
that's the thing. But that's the thing. I think this was both a PR failure and a planning one. And I preface all this with no one deserves to be harassed or made to feel unsafe by paparazzi.
Right.
PR, immediately that statement went out and it evoked Princess Diana. It evoked the actual high-speed chase.
Maybe that was on purpose. Maybe it was because it should evoke Princess Diana. Just because it does evoke something emotional doesn't mean that that emotional comparison is unwarranted. There's clearly a lot of parallels to say that, like, well, the problem is the PR was up here and making it sound like this is very evocative of Princess Diana. It's like, yeah, it should be evocative of Princess Diana. We're lucky that nobody died in this case, but it doesn't mean that it was safe.
That she died within 7 minutes of being in the car in Paris when that took place. So it immediately panicked the public because obviously no one can even relate to Harry's trauma on this, but that's also a public trauma. We all remember when that happened. So I think it immediately made it sound very, very serious.
The idea of this is Harry's trauma and our public trauma, and therefore Harry shouldn't have played with our public trauma is so backwards and crazy. Harry is the one that actually had to lose his mother and went through a true grieving process. Not to say that if you were affected by Princess Diana's death, that's not valid. Your feelings are yours. They're valid. But he's making that comparison, having to actually have lived with the consequences of that trauma. Like, to say that Harry, like, misrepresented it in order to play on the public's trauma around Princess Diana, I think is very cynical. When he is her son and actually knew her.
Felt like that, though. But they may have felt like that, but the other is planning. This city accommodates heads of state, the biggest celebrities. Taylor Swift gets around New York and she's got just as many paparazzi in her face, but you plan. So I guess they were staying at a private residence is what I read, and so they didn't want the car to pull up to the private residence, which I understand, because then stalkers could see them or people could try to take pictures. Home. But then check into a hotel that deals with VIPs every day. You pull into the loading dock.
The victim blaming. Why are we blaming Harry and Meghan for staying at a private residence that they don't want the paparazzi to stalk? Why are we blaming Harry and Meghan for that decision and not for the paparazzi who are actually doing the bad things?
Because people don't realize, people have... Either they love you as a celebrity or they hate you. I've lived in both worlds.
Yeah, they both at the same time.
I have. You know, I've been chased. I know what they do.
I've been with you when you've been stalked, and it must be terribly uncomfortable.
Well, you know what it is? There's certain things, and you're right. When you come to New York, you have to know, if you have security detail, have them figure out how long it's going to take you to get from point A to point B. That will tell you.
You don't think that their security detail tried to do all of that, Whoopi Goldberg? You don't think that they tried? You don't think their security did their job? Like, what is Whoopi contributing to this? And again, the New Yorker attitude is driving me crazy. What is this whole welcome to New York? Like, you gotta know how to deal with our paparazzi in the city. It shouldn't be this hard to avoid being stalked and harassed. Why does it have to be this complicated for them? Just leave them alone. Leave Harry and Meghan alone.
Where you need to go. You can't make lefts and rights here in New York if you're driving. So you have to know that. Also, the paparazzi is always going to go for celebrities. They just are, because it makes a little dough for them. It does. So they're right. It
makes a little dough for them is a weird statement, considering that these pictures run for like millions of dollars. But it's not a little dough. Maybe for like certain parties involved, it's a little dough. But like, yeah, isn't that a bit crazy that people are willing to put other lives in jeopardy for a couple bucks, right? A couple bucks, supposedly.
But for their people, I want to recommend that when you come here, know exactly what your route is going to be. You must know your route and the fastest way to get there. If you're
Whoopi implying that they did not try that like the security team just didn't do their job it's just baffling to me. But like the people on like their security team are also like I think Whoopi is under the impression like they're these foreign like British security people and they don't know anything about how America works. I think one of them literally like worked on Obama's security team. So it's not like they're ignorant about New York. Like, I just don't get it. We can't deal with this anymore. Victim blaming Whoopi Goldberg once again. You hate to see it. So what's my take? Okay, what's the good take? This incident was not nothing. It was not a high-speed chase through New York with bodies piling up like a fucking Fast and Furious movie, but it is a story that nobody should want to happen again. And in order for it not to happen again, we have to push more aggressively to penalize those who are involved in this kind of stalking as journalism. Arrest those who are behaving in reckless and aggressive ways while just trying to get a photo of a celebrity. Create and enforce laws which ensure better protection of celebrities and their families so that they are not allowed to be pursued in ways that could be a danger to themselves or others. And as for this specific incident, I hope that further investigations will continue to paint a better picture of what happened on that night. I would also hope that the royal family would comment on this incident, at least to express sympathy to, their family members who just went through a traumatizing event. I have no idea why they would wish to not comment on this event. It seems like a PR disaster. I think it makes them look pretty callous. Instead of just giving a statement that showed real empathy, the media circus is somehow trying to portray that their silence is necessary when it's not. I'm also developing a theory that the royal family is trying to court a very different demographic these days. One that in a way is like almost Trumpian. Exhibit A is Megyn Kelly's take on this.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry say that they were in a near catastrophic car chase involving paparazzi in New York City last night. Near catastrophic. What does that mean? I mean, near catastrophic is what we all have every time we look down to change the radio while we're driving our cars, or engage in the stupidity of checking a text or our phones while we're driving. That's near catastrophic.
All right, a little bit of a confusing statement from Megyn Kelly. She says near catastrophic, as in similar to all the reckless driving that I don't know who she's speaking for. She says that we all engage in this, but it sounds like the reckless driving that Megyn Kelly specifically engages in. Why are we making that comparison at all? Yeah, you texting while driving might also be near catastrophic too. Like, it's a self-report. What is this? So Megyn Kelly is going to criticize Harry and Meghan's description of this event as near catastrophic because she also engages in reckless driving. Apparently. Yeah, that is reckless driving. That's actually illegal in a lot of places. The argument that you're making doesn't make a lot of sense. The attempt to make it seem like Harry and Meghan are over-exaggerating has seemed to have blown back in your face because you're making the argument basically that everybody you know is just a bad driver. She posted this from her official YouTube channel. This isn't even someone quoting her out of context. She quoted herself. I also think that the way that she phrased it is very Tucker Carlson, RIP. Listen to the way that she goes from that dismissal of Harry and Meghan's claim to how she transitions into her own stuff.
Near catastrophic. What does that mean? I mean,
near catastrophic. What does that mean? That's such a Tucker Carlson move, isn't it? What does that even mean? What does it mean, near catastrophic? We know what it means because if you read the statement, they actually elaborated on what it means to them. Oh, it's such a Tucker Carlson thing to say. It's like, it's a way to transition into like opining on shit that doesn't matter. We do not have time to go into like the Trumpification of like royal family supporters. That's a story for another day. We have to go. So I'm saying bye. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm so there's a little paw there. Thank you for watching, guys. Me and Teddy are glad to be giving you more of this content. Please check out some of my most recent videos. I've been reacting to Prince Harry's Spare memoir and been talking about the Harry Meghan Netflix documentary in relation to some of my own experiences and diving into more specific topics. So if you like this kind of thing, please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. You know the drill. We will see you next time. Bye.